What's going on, everybody? For the first time this year, I'm here with my friend JP, Jonathan Pishner from Apex Counseling. Again, just to have one of our little Facebook fireside Zoom StreamYard chats. But we're excited about getting these topics that we got together. Today's topic is your personal legend. As soon as we brought that one up in conversation, we knew that was one we wanted to start with and dig in pretty deep. We've had a good conversation about beforehand and trading notes. John, you want to go and get started real quick?
Yeah. So as soon as you said something about personal legend, I was like, oh man, okay, yeah, we got to talk about that because there's multiple types of counseling and psychotherapy that are centered around the fact that we think in stories. So the idea of somebody crafting a personal legend for themselves is it's actually it's using different words, but it's actually central to one type of counseling theory. But without having to do a formal counseling process, there's a ton of value in a person thinking about what is the personal legend that they want to live out, what is the story of their life that they want to live out. But there's a ton of ways that goes sideways for a lot of people. So it's a valuable topic for us to spend a few minutes on.
Yeah, I can say for sure that I have thought about stories in myself like I said, the whole time since I was a little kid, like envisioning what I wanted to do, or even, daydreaming, even spending time in the car or whatever. But in the last couple of years, actually, I know that I've been putting a lot more emphasis on that itself, like both things that I learned about, like you said, how humans themselves actually viewed story, use story, how our brain processes time. And so this theory of a personal legend, which the term comes specifically from the book The Alchemist by Paolo Coelho there in the notes. But I just thought it was perfect. Like, one of the key things is that people don't, there's everybody, or most people heard the phrase or something along the lines of, it's not the number of breaths you take, it's the amount of life in the breath, or the moment of time to take your breath away, something like that. But I mean, in general, that idea that life is not only measured by actual years lived, but by the type of life that fills it up. And I feel like that's very central to this, because I know brain chemistry actually shows that the more novelty, the more outside of the ordinary experience you can give it and fill with. And again, just feel with those big moments or just outside the ordinary memorable things. That's what makes time seem to pass slower. So rather than going faster and running out of time, life literally seems slower to our brains the more of it we're experiencing with new big things. And I feel like that ties in perfectly with this idea of the personal legend.
Yeah, and you even think of the people that are memorable to us. A lot of people don't even realize the fact that I'm older than Bruce Lee ever made it. He died at 30, 32, something like that. They crammed so much living into that short amount of time that, almost his entire story is well known and is almost like a legend, if you will. But yeah, talking about the peaks being the important part. You go throughout history and you see that quote come up over and over again in different forms. You got Jack London saying, "I'd rather be ashes than dust." The idea just has manifested itself through centuries, and let's say millennia, probably, because our brains haven't significantly changed over the course of a few thousand years as far as we can measure.
Exactly. So with the personal legend, I think that, there's a couple of key pieces to it. One, the foundational part is it's what you kind of always wanted to accomplish. Those things that your brain is, as far back as you can remember, when you think about the things you wanted to do in your life, what did you want to do? And that does not mean, that's not the type of question that they ask you, say, in school, and you say a firefighter or a doctor, that can be a little piece of it, but I'm not talking about that here. It's how big do you want to feel like your life is? There's that foundational part. Do you want to go out and kind of feel go on adventures and explore? Do you want to have all this freedom, or do you want to be somebody that people look up to, or do you want to be somebody who spends a lot of time helping others, like that foundation is set at a very early age. And I think paying more attention to that and giving more value to it is a key part of this. As I said, it's not the facts that make it up. It's that overlying sensation, that true outcome. Like maybe you said you wanted to be a doctor because you wanted to help people. That part doesn't work out. But if you end up being a successful business person and can turn that into philanthropy, and then you can take that and still accomplish that ideal that you wanted at an early age when you're much older in life.
Yeah, and the sad thing is, like if we were speaking in terms of psychoanalytic psychology theory, we'd be calling this a life script, but it's the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. The theory is that your life script is more or less set pretty early. Like our desires aren't very changeable. What is changeable, and the sad thing about people's personal legend or life script or whatever we choose to call it, is that it gets covered up with a whole bunch of extra nonsense. You use the doctor example, so I'm just going to steal it. There's some people who like, oh man, I wanna be an entertainer, but then they might cover that up with the other thing, with being a doctor, because that's what their family says they should want, or society, or their teachers, or whatever. So what's interesting is you ask a 5-year-old what they want, they're pretty in touch with it. Sometimes you ask a 25-year-old what they want, and it's like they blue screen, like they don't even understand how to answer that question anymore because it's covered up with a bunch of other stuff. They haven't even been in touch with what they wanted for years, decades, and so like here as we talk about it, we're going to be like, oh yeah, write your personal legend, as if that's like an easy thing. There's a lot of people who are going to like stay at step one on that for a while, because we got to dig through 9 layers of dirt to get to what did we actually used to want.
Yeah, like so many times I know that I can relate to that, because I've asked myself why or what it is I want so many times, and like I said, I had to ask a lot of times to even start really figuring out and realizing I was like finally getting to that answer. And I really like the part you got to, because it was definitely one of the things I wanted to hit about the other things you start letting get in the way, or those other things like I think 2 of the biggest things that do start holding people back and holding people away from fulfilling that life script that they want, and hitting and really getting that personal legends detailed, like into the nitty gritty part, is one, like you said, what their environment tells them, like you said, which is it can come in parents or family, it can come from teachers, it can come from peers, it can come from just the media, like you said, all those things telling you what is normal or what is likely, and that's all just based on their beliefs and their experiences. But you hear them. You can't choose some of it. Like the people that you're around when you're little, you can't choose that. So the message that you hear thousands of times is going to be heard, like you said, in your subconscious. So if it's not a positive one, if it's not a particularly encouraging one, then it does take for one, you said you pretty much have to identify that is a problem. And then it's going to take actual work to change it. But like I said, just because
and that it's okay to change it, that people get stuck on that all the time.
Exactly. And like hearing though, just like really going to what you want to do is perfectly okay to go try to do what you want to do. And the second one, not just the people in like the environment that you're in, but is also the routine or the mundane things in life. Like I said, like, there's positive routines, there's positive mundane things. But if you're always using those, if you always feel like that's what you need to do, it's very easy to do that as, again, another excuse to never try to actually like figure out the bigger things. If you always have to stay home and, clean, or like you always have to cook, like just those recyclable things, when it's like, hey, since we're both in business, say you want to try to figure out that next step of your business to be able to reach and help more people. And even spending like 15 or 30 minutes a few days a week on those ideas could help you get there. But if instead every single time it's like the options are, let me spend 30 minutes on that, or let me spend 30 minutes tidying the books up, and you're always choosing that one. It's like just that type of just constant behavior that never lets you get to the bigger step.
Well, yeah, let's share about that for a second, because that's really valuable. Here you got two people who are very aware of that, and yet how easy is it still to want to clean up the books instead of do the tougher thing?
Every single day, that's my struggle. Literally every single day, that's my struggle. Yeah,
yep.
It's huge.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a big next step project to work on this weekend, and I know I'm gonna sit down to do it, and I'll be like, oh man, that drain needs cleaned out. I better probably go do that, and I've got to fight against that. But then when you're not aware of it, it's even easier to fall into that. So awareness is key, but it damn sure doesn't solve the problem all the way.
Yes. A couple of pieces that came, so in the description, again, I mentioned two books that I think would be great reads for people who get a lot out of this. The Alchemist, the other one was A Million Miles in 1,000 Years. And what happens there is that one's a real life story from the author, Donald Miller. And one of the things he does is, he's like a author who eventually has success just on the story. They want to make a movie out of it. It's called Blue Like Jazz or something. I've literally never heard of it. But he is kind of just fallen back into that, I'm not doing anything else at all. And when he suddenly switches and starts doing, when he becomes aware, it's the fact that they're trying to make a movie, and the movie guys are pointing out that his life is really uninteresting from the point of a movie. So they wanted to change all these details about it to make it interesting to the audience. And that's when he's because he did, he'd be against them because it wasn't true. Mm-hmm. And then after a while, he's like, man, that kind of is what my life is like, and it's not interesting from the outside. So why don't I try to actually make it interesting now? And that kind of changed, and that pretty much changed it. That's that's when the story finally turns. And I said that was a big one for me actually reading that book. So that's why I wanted to bring that one up specifically.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I want to read that now because I love hearing those stories, and I love the opportunity for other people to hear those stories, because one of the things that people fall into is that they think they shouldn't want to live the life that's really authentic to them. This is relevant. Did I ever tell you why I named my practice Apex Counseling? Did I ever tell you that story?
No, I don't think so.
Because it kind of came from a twofold thing, but one of the big ones was most people fall into depression, anxiety. It's really easy for them to marinate in their traumas because of a mistake they make, which is society tells us to aim for the middle. Aim for that job you're supposed, go be an accountant. Nobody says, hey, you want to be a rock star? Go be a rock star. Mm-hmm. And most people end up the phrase I heard from somewhere else. It's not my phrase. Lives of quiet desperation, because most people, if they aim for the absolute top and they miss, they still have a much more fulfilling life than if they aimed for the middle and got there. Because even if you aim for absolutely what you want and missed, the one thing you never have is that regret of, man, I should have tried. Because at least if I want to be a rock star and decide to go do it, I'm basically tone deaf. I'm starting late. It's probably not going to happen. But if I decide tomorrow that's what I need to do, at least if I do it, I won't be 70 years old and be telling myself man, I should have tried. I should have done it. I won't have that regret. And so many people live with that. I work with so many people who are doctors that want to be Instagram models. I work with, lawyers who wish they were, just a teacher and coaching Little League a little bit, or vice versa. So many people cover up that personal legend with, just this other thing that's stamped, sanctioned, and approved by everybody else.
Yes.
And that works for 5 years, ish. You might be able to white knuckle it through 10, but here's a great example. Pick any person that has an obvious midlife crisis. Anybody you see who divorces their wife, moves to college, marries some 19-year-old, buys a Lamborghini, all that crazy stuff we associate with midlife crisis.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy to know what happened. What happened was they spent too many years denying who and what they really were. The pressure got too much, and they finally broke and were trying something new. It's probably not really what they want, but they just snapped and had to go off and try something.
Yeah, man, that's so spot on. It was funny, one of the things you mentioned earlier, well, actually made me think of a tweet I saw from Elon Musk this morning. And it was basic, but it was like, I'd rather be an optimist and be wrong than be a pessimist and be right. But so as soon as you said that, I was like, because I remember seeing that this morning and being like, yeah, he's nuts, but I personally like the guy. But
well, there's a fine line between madness and genius, and I think he steps back and forth across
exactly.
Fairly regularly.
Got 1 foot in each for sure. A couple of the pieces from, as I said, from The Alchemist, also wanted to bring out was one was that a big part in the story of that personal legend. A couple of them was, one is recognizing omens, which an omen can sound like a very new agey word, or like a very old word. People are like, omens, what the hell? But really, when you think about it, that's just the old fashioned way of saying recognize the opportunities or in the signs. And again, and really those are two different things. Opportunities will come up to the chance to at least work on those things that will help you feel more fulfilled and build that personal legend. But at the same time, do recognize the signs that are saying whether or not you're moving in the right direction or not. If you're stressed out, because this is a big one for me, I tell you right now. If I'm stressed out, from just how things are going, or the pace, or it seems like starting to juggle a lot or something like that, and it almost always seems that I will notice more right at those points when I'll suddenly get either a handful of texts or see messages on Facebook that people send, just talking about how much they appreciate in the impact that we've been able to have through Viking performance, on their life or on their kids' life or things like that. And it's those to me are, directs, those always help me, recalibrate in the direction I'm going. So seeing those signs, and just seeing those opportunities and moving on. Because again, new Asia language aside, the universe wants us to succeed and build that momentum. So whether you think on anything like that or not, there is a very pretty much proven science. I know there is, at least psychologically and mentally, if not physically, but there's that proven science to positive momentum.
Mm-hmm. Talking about that, it was even we were doing these, and I was privately wondering one day, I was like, man, I hope these are actually useful to people. And then it wasn't a day later you told me that somebody had messaged you and said, yeah, I've been watching the live cast, they're helpful. And you told me that. I was like, well, shoot, man, if one person finds them useful, then okay, let's keep doing them. That's, but as you're to your point, that's a good version of an omen. Oh, okay, we're moving in the right direction. Exactly. One thing that's really important to point out that I really like to encourage people to think about. When somebody's building their personal legend, there is a mistake, especially today. I assume it was probably around before, but I'm fond of blaming social media for a lot of things. I'm going to blame it for this too, even though we're on social media right now. Irony. So there's a lot of people, as they craft their personal legend, they leave something important out, which is they see where they want to be, but part of their story, they don't account for as part of my story, how do I deal with setbacks? How do I deal with mistakes? How do I deal with it when I screw up? A lot of people think they can craft their personal legend. They think they can craft a winning life script where they somehow do everything perfectly and there's never a mistake. and that's not a good mindset, because then it puts you in a position of like, you make that one mistake and you take it as an omen of like, oh no, I'm screwing this up, I better quit. I can't remember if I ever told you, if we ever talked about it on live stream. Did I ever tell you my hands down my favorite hero story series of movies?
I don't think so.
The Rocky movies. Now, not particularly like, it's not Shakespeare, but as far as being a hero story, I think it's probably the best hero story on film, because it's how a human being actually addresses success. Because to tell it in 90 seconds, you got somebody who waited a heck of a long time before he even bothered trying to take an opportunity. And he got one, and he kind of went a little somewhere with it. But then he kind of screwed it up, and like all the money went away. And then he was like nervous to take the next opportunity. He's like, man, I don't know. And then he did. But then he managed to screw that one up too a little while later. And then like he kind of came back and figured that one out. And then, he signed the wrong form and like lost all of his money and had all the health problems and brain damage from being a boxer too long. And then by the sixth movie, it's like, okay, he's kind of come back a little bit again, and he at least owns his own business and he's doing okay. That's an actual human hero story. Because what we think is like, oh, personal legend, I'm going to start here and I'm going to like shoot for the stars and never go come back down. And what really happens is we try stuff, we screw it up, and hopefully the next time we try stuff, we just screw up better than we did last time. But most people, as they write their legend, they think it's something else. They don't think of, okay, as part of me, as part of my legend, like when I screw up, okay, fine, I dust myself off and then I go again, instead of taking it as a signal that they just suck and it's time to quit.
Man, that's huge. I had literally never heard of that before. He told me that. Like, I never thought about that. That's awesome.
I don't know. I don't even know what made me think.
Really have to go and watch
one day I was rewatching those movies, and I was like, it was after I was a counselor, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually how human beings do this.
Yeah. At some point, I'm never gonna have to go soon now and actually watch 1 through 6 in a row. I can absorb that.
I kind of left 4 out because that's really more of a war propaganda movie, but I mean, it's still in the series.
Yeah, if he dies, he dies. That's pretty much what it's about. In training montages. One of our athletes recently just actually had to watch Rocky. She's 14 or 15, and told her mom, right, he's not even really training. That was like 3 days ago. So I know it's about time to wrap it up. The one more thing that I wanted to bring up too is like was in the idea in it, like in The Alchemist, there's a language plays a pretty big part in a way, because it is cultural. It's placed out in Egypt and Middle East a little bit in terms of the actual physical story itself. But one of the things it talks about is just like enthusiasm. Like that, with everything happening, like even when people don't literally speak the same language, like they can almost always communicate effectively when enthusiasm is involved. And I say, and really that almost crosses even past humans to, like you and a dog, you and horse, like it's even an animal kingdom thing too. And to me, like that's a big part in the personal legend, crafting that life script, is going at it enthusiastically for both like yourself to actually do it, but then it will actually, I think, increase or improve, it will strengthen that legend with other people too. Because again, like people love being around enthusiastic people. Like it picks them up, it gives them more energy, especially if they can tell that, it's genuine. And it just, I feel like everything is improved when you bring that enthusiasm to the table. So to me, that could be that's one of the biggest parts to the personal legend, is speaking that language of enthusiasm.
As you're saying that, it brings up, because enthusiasm is desperately important, like you're saying, and it's a problem for a lot of people. Even if we don't do the next one, we got to do one on that.
All right.
We got to do one on enthusiasm.
Okay, sounds great to me. So,
Because you were saying that, I had this urge. I was like, oh man, I need to like say psychologically, here's how you maintain enthusiasm. And then I was like, shoot, I can't say that in like 3 minutes. I'd be hard pressed to do it in 10.
All right, man. Good talk. Like I said, I always love doing these things. 25 minutes just flew by.
I know, right?
Yeah. Like we are looking at doing the next one in 2 weeks, I believe. So look forward to that. And again, like you said earlier, if one person gets something out of this listening to it, then freaking awesome. And that's why we're here. Yep. So, all right, brother, you have a good one. Anybody who caught this, again, we hope you like something. If you're a reader, I said read those 2 books. I said JP and I are both always passing back and forth reading ideas. So, all right, catch everybody later.
Until next time.